This weekly podcast inspires you to step outside of your comfort zone. My name is Zakir Muhammad, and I'm your host of the Living Legacy podcast. I am a cancer survivor, brand cultivating strategist, author, and world traveler. This Living Legacy podcast features women of purpose sharing stories of resilience. They are single and married. They are artists and entrepreneurs who run businesses and juggle parenthood. If you are ready to hear interviews about professionalism, entrepreneurship, travel, life, and love, you are in the right place. They will share stories of how they overcame adversity while seeing life through a different lens. Let's get into it. Today is a very good episode. So, as you know, the Living Legacy podcast is all about women of purpose sharing stories of resilience. For the summer, I decided to make it relevant to current events and kind of switch it up a little bit and make it more about Muslim women of purpose sharing stories of adversity. So I've only talked about this briefly. So episode 5 of the Living Legacy podcast, you meet my dad. I was born into the religion of Islam. My parents, my mom and dad converted, but separately. Like they met together in Atlanta, but they had both individually converted to Islam. So if you listen to episode 11 with Neymat Rabubi, she's based in South Africa, but she is also an author. So we talked a lot about what it's like to be an author, as well as the holy month of Ramadan. And then episode 20, I got to talk to my childhood best friend, Aizya Ali Muhammad. And she is a dietitian and a nutritionist. So we talked about that journey, of course, how close we are, how well we knew each other, as well as her journey for emotional eating and why she chose to be a dietitian and nutritionist. And then last but not least, my mom. We kind of had a 2-part episode talking about the book, because as you may or may not know, I'm also the author of Seeing Life Through a Different Lens. So we literally talked about the book. The book had just came out and we were getting rave reviews. And so we talked about our experiences, some experiences that were not mentioned in the book. But today I want to, it's not completely going off topic because it's all relevant, but this is going to be a fun conversation. I'm having a conversation with Imani Bashir. She has over 10 years of experience as a writer and a journalist. She started in sports broadcasting, so she studied it at the university. And let me just tell you that she's been on all of the major outlets that you can think of. So look up her name and you will find her on all of the major outlets. So she's a world traveler. It was almost about 10 years ago this year that she literally first started internationally traveling. So since then, she dubs herself as, a world media specialist. So she's also a wife. She's also a mom to a beautiful baby boy. She's also the author of a children's coloring book. So she's been in DC, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Florida, Georgia, you name it. But she started out also as an expat in Asia and England and Poland and China. And guess what? She is also a Sagittarius. So if you don't know what a Sagittarius is, we are the queens of December and November. So Imani, Salam Alaikum, peace be with you. Thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
Walaikum salam, sis. I'm fantastic. Such a warm welcome. Thank you for having me, Zakira. This is amazing. It's always great to do things with your sisters, with your fellow sisters. It's been harder for me to do things, being abroad, but now, things like Zoom are making it so much easier to be connected, with my sisters in the Deen. And so, alhamdulillah, I'm so excited to be here and be a part of this podcast today.
Thank you. And thank you, yes, for Zoom. Thank you for the silver lining of all of this happening. It allows us to come together a little bit more easier than we would have if we were still traveling and trying to meet up and crossing paths elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's start with the basics. You were born into the religion also, like myself, but tell me your story of how your parents converted or reverted.
Sure. So my father's side, we're 4 generations in. So my father was born Muslim, my grandfather Muslim, my mother converted. My mother did convert, and then my mother and my father, they met at Howard. Well, they met they're both from New Jersey, and they had met in similar circles, in New Jersey, but then they had, I guess, gotten reacquainted when they both attended Howard University. And so that's where they had gotten acquainted, and then they got married, and had us. It's 5 of us. I'm the middle of 5 children. So that's literally, my introduction. I was born into it. However, my parents also gave us a choice that when each of us turned 18, to allow us to take our shahada again, so we wouldn't be walking around saying, well, we're Muslim because our parents are Muslim, or we're Muslim because our grandparents are Muslim. So they literally gave us the choice to say, like, if this is something that you want to continue to do, this has to be something that you do on your own. You can't hold that over us. So that was something that we also had to decide for ourselves coming into young adulthood, that, we were going to remain Muslim because this was the way of life that we decided, not just the way of life that we grew up in. So that's pretty much where my beginning came as far as like being Muslim.
Absolutely. So I'm already feeling like you are my soul sister in a way, because it's the exact same thing. Except my parents, met through my older sister, my mom's daughter. My dad was the city of commissioner in Atlanta, and then my mom was working at a book publishing house. And it was my older sister's prom night, and my dad was the limousine driver, and they met that day. But it just
Wow.
so happened to work out that they were already both Muslims, so it was like, okay. So, and then also, yeah, I too have always just had that choice. I was blessed to be able to grow up um, in secure environments where I could learn more about Islam by attending summer camps twice in a summer when I was about 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 1 year in Tampa, Florida at a Islamic school. So literally think of it as like a Christian boarding school, but for Muslims, right? So,
Right.
and then my first African country that I went to was Ghana. So I got to, well, where we were, it was kind of a mix of both Christian and Muslim, but that was my first time. I was 18 years old. That was my first time exploring it for myself, attending the mosque, the masjid, and place of prayer for myself. So talk about what that was like for you once you're 18, young, wild, and free. What was that like for you to kind of exploring and maybe even coming back around? If we all have those moments where we kind of step out because we just want to see what's going on, right? But tell us about that, how that was for you to kind of coming back around.
Oh yeah, for sure. By the time I was 18, I was already in college. I actually, because we have the late birthday. I graduated when I was 17. So the fall that I came into college, I was 17 years old. So, especially, as a Muslim, when you're growing up in a very non-Muslim society, you do um, come across, that identity crisis. And okay, do I want to cover? Do I not want to cover? Do I want to be like so about my deen, or do I just want to kind of blend in? I was more so in the stage of like, I just wanted to blend in. I didn't really want to stand out. I didn't want people. I hated people my whole entire life asking me questions about my name, asking me questions about, oh, so you can't eat pork. Like, I just hated, like, I've always felt like it was like the third degree. Like, you got to answer all these questions, to back your identity, where it's like the Britneys and the Ashleys of the world didn't have to answer any questions about themselves, just me. So I did more, that stage of my life was more about just blending in. Like, I didn't want to rock the boat too much to where, people did know that I was Muslim. When it came to certain things like, drinking or eating pork or whatever, like, people realize, okay, she's not drinking. Well, why are you not drinking? Oh, I'm Muslim. Oh, okay. You're not going to eat pepperoni. No, I can't eat pepperoni. I'm Muslim. So it was just those little things. But no, I didn't cover at that time. When I was 18, I was not trying to cover. I wasn't, looking to do that. And just, figuring it out for myself. The great thing is, like, my dad will always tell me, he would always say and assure, like, you'll get it. Like, right now, it's not like necessity for you to be so, strict in your deen. Like, this is something that you have to grow into. This is something that through experiences, you're going to learn why certain things matter, why certain things are important. And I remember, like, telling him, like, I don't get why, like, we have to cover, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. And so I was allowed, through him, I was allowed that growth in really fully understanding what hijab is, what it means, what, being modest means, as opposed to just doing it just to do it and going through the motions. For me, I was never like the kid that was raised in the masjid. I wasn't like at the masjid for, Friday school and all of that kind of stuff. I did not go to Islamic school. I went to public schools and stuff like that. So it wasn't that I wasn't comfortable in the masjid, but I always felt like the masjid was like the strict place. And that's not the place that I wanted to be. I was like, no, because there's so many rules. Like, you can't do this and you can't do that. And, you can't be loud and you can't have fun. So, you probably wouldn't find me in the masjid unless like it's Eid, unless it's, what I mean, Ramadan, like those kinds of things. But, I did go through my own self-discovery. And I think all of that like encompassed my Islam, obviously. So everything that I have gone through, whether it was, how I dressed, having my hair out, any of those things, all of it kind of like went back to Islam. Like it kind of like took me back to like, okay, how does this impact me in the hereafter? How does this impact, my greatest purpose in the world? Am I really living up to my fullest potential as a Muslim? Who am I doing this for? Am I just doing this to appease my parents? Am I doing this because, I really feel good about doing this and I feel good about it internally and I feel like Allah will be pleased with that? So there was so many questions in, having to navigate that, to where, eventually I started doing things in smaller doses, covering more, dressing more modestly than I had been, before. And just little things that made me comfortable, not everybody else, but just made me comfortable and was like, okay, I can do this, but I have to do it in stages, but in my time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the most important thing of doing it for you. Of course, we later grow to realize that we do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the sake of God.
Yes.
But it's so easy to get caught up in all the questions of do you ever take it off? I want to see what you look like without it. Is it too hot for you to wear? And then it's like, okay, well, sure, like here you go, there's a face like, yeah, this is me. So,
Right.
but I want to actually jump back into the community. I do completely
Mm-hmm.
understand what you were saying about the community. So it's interesting because I grew up surrounded by a community, but what was interesting to me is in Florida, South Florida. South Florida, it was okay. I had a bunch of girlfriends that were, we were all the same age, and they were Muslim, right? They were Muslim, but then they never came back around, right? But what was interesting, what I realized though, is had I stayed in South Florida, had I not gone to that Islamic school and been around like a Muslim community, it would have been me too. So it's
Yeah.
sometimes our lives just kind of take us on a path to kind of intentionally make it be full circle. So that's an amazing thing. That's an amazing thing. How did you meet your husband? And then how did Islam kind of play in that role? Like, I want to hear that side of the story.
So my husband and I actually met in Cairo. So I had moved to Cairo in August of 2015. And then he and I met in March of 2016. And like you said, in the intro, I started my career as a sports broadcaster. And so people kept sending me like this link that the NFL was coming to, it kept saying Africa. So I was assuming like they're going to Ghana, they're going to Nigeria. Like Cairo gives you very Arab world. It doesn't give you very African unless you're like, going to the museums and things like that. So, I clicked the link and then I saw, like one of my favorite players and personalities, Marshawn Lynch, was going to be coming and that they were actually coming to Cairo, Egypt. And so they have a program called Football Without Barriers that teaches high school and college aged boys how to play the game of American football. So I was like, oh my God, I have to get into this event because, just to be around, sports and to be around, like Americans. I was like, I have to go. So at the time I was teaching English literature for an international school, and I had 10th and 11th grade. So I invited all of my, athletic guys. I'm like, if you guys go, I'll give you extra credit, whatever. None of them went. But I went, and my husband was there, but I thought he worked for the league. So I didn't say anything. And I went with another, a homegirl that I had met abroad in Egypt. And she was from Compton. And she accompanied me because she was like, yeah, I can't wait to like just see some Americans and just, be around, our culture. So we were there, and we started talking. We found out that we lived very close by to each other. And we also found out that, that he had been there for a while, and we had never crossed paths. Like, we lived like maybe 10 or 15 minutes away from each other. So we exchanged numbers, but he had mentioned something about going to China and the next fall, and I wasn't planning on leaving Egypt. I was planning on staying there like maybe 2 years and then like matriculating to a different country or something like that. So I wasn't planning on leaving. Now, my husband is not born and raised Muslim either. He's a convert. And I remember he had asked me, he had given me some visa papers to go to China, because China, visa is required. And so he gives me these papers, and I'm like, okay, like I'm looking, I'm like, okay, what are these? And so he's like, I want you to come with me to China. And so I was like, originally when he said it, I thought he meant like to visit or whatever. So I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. Like, I'll try to find some time to visit. But he was like, no, I want you to come with me to China. And I was like, no, 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 no. I don't go nowhere with no man that's not my husband. Like, that's just not how it works. That's not how it works. And then maybe like a day or so later, he was like, can I have your dad's number? So I was like, what's he trying to do? So I gave it to him, because I just wanted to see, because, a lot of times, especially for Muslim women, when you're dealing with men, you tell them you got to talk to my dad first, then all of a sudden everybody loses interest, and they don't know how to speak no more. They, whatever the case may be. So I was like, okay, fine. You want to talk to my dad? Cool. I gave him my dad's number, and he sure did call. He called, and that's literally all she wrote. He developed his own, personal relationship with my father, but also my father's father, my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, had been living in Egypt for maybe like 15 years. Him and his wife left and came to Egypt. They built a house from the ground up. And so my father was like, since I'm not there, I would appreciate if you go and speak to my father, since he's the eldest of the family, at the time. So that's what my husband did. We took him to, my grandfather's. They spoke one-on-one. And then we got married 2 months later. And we've been married for 4 years. And we have the little one, the 3-year-old Nasir. So that's literally, from how we met to how we got married. We got married very quickly. Because I'm like, if I'm going to China, obviously I'm not going as like a girlfriend or anything like that. And at the time it was like, okay, if we are going to get married, we might as well do that sooner than later, because then I'll have to get all the stuff out of Egypt and pretty much leave the life that I had started there behind. So that's pretty much how it happened.
This episode is sponsored by Practical Muslim. If you are a Muslim or a woman of faith interested in strengthening your spiritual journey, get 60 uplifting downloadable devotional cards. For $5 off, use promo code LEGACY at practicalmuslim.com. That's practicalmuslim.com. And so I'm glad you did mention that beautiful story, and I'm glad you did mention the importance of what makes Islam, I feel like, beautiful in a way. The fact that you do need to talk to the elder, because these men are so slick nowadays, and but also the short timeline, like that's completely okay and completely normal. And it's especially if it's not an arranged marriage, it's completely okay and completely normal in Islam. So I appreciate you mentioning that. Your baby boy came, and where was he born exactly?
He was born in Poland. So we had, after we had left China, we had gone to Thailand for some time, and then we came back to the States for a little bit. But by the time we got back to the States, I was already pregnant, and I just did not want to have a child in the States. Like, I have generational, you know, traumatic, just relationship with, medical systems and healthcare. And so I was like, if we can find a contract somewhere that has a great, medical system, I would prefer not having this kid, in the United States. And so, my husband, who, coaches football, we decided, and I was literally like towards the end of my pregnancy when we went to Poland. Like, it was literally like a last minute thing, because I was adamant. I was like, I'm not having this kid in the United States. It's not happening. And so I was my son came a week early. So I was possibly 2 weeks out of my due date, 2 or 3 weeks out of my maybe like 2.5 weeks out of my due date, but he came a week early. So I hadn't even realized that we were so close to, like, to giving birth. But I gave birth in our living room, in Poland, in our actual, like, apartment. We didn't have any medical assistance. It was just me and my husband, and then eventually Nasir, and that was it. 22-hour labor, and he came, and then we had a friend, who spoke English. Her husband, like, was kind of like a team helper, and she made sure that, like, they had a midwife come to check on him. Then she took me to the pediatrician to get him checked out, and then she took me to the gynecologist to make sure that everything was okay with me, internally, and everything was fine. It was a really beautiful experience.
And Black women are amazing. Look at that. You basically did it. You did it, girl.
Okay.
So I think it's a great segue to move on into, we know how amazing we are, but the world doesn't necessarily understand that and appreciate that, or appreciate that in a way that makes us feel heard and valued and wanted and respected. So let's talk about your experiences with whichever one you want to start with, whether it's colorism, the sexism, the discrimination against being a Muslim. Whichever one you want to start with, because we all go through it, right? So tell us about one time that you literally had to overcome adversity, experiencing it.
Oh goodness, there's so
Too
many,
many.
unfortunately. I would say, I said this on a panel yesterday, like, unfortunately, I would say my first experience, especially with, like, anti-Blackness and racism, was within the Muslim community, and within the non-Black Muslim community. Whether it was like you giving someone salams and they not respond, or you going to, like, step in, to pray and, like, stand next to them and they move, so that they don't have to stand next to you. These are things that I remember at a very early age, before any, like, white person, like, overtly said anything out of pocket to me or whatever. It was typically non-Black Muslims in a masjid setting, or, like, just out and about. We're in a store. Oh, you say, "Oh, salam alaikum," and they just look at you like, those kinds of things. So I had to identify what that was very early. I have a very pro-Black father. So, we knew about these things. It wasn't like this wasn't discussed in our home. It wasn't like racism wasn't discussed in our home, or how to deal with it, or how to deal with, certain things that come our way. It was like we were groomed to understand, listen, you are Black, you are Muslim, you are, woman, you are man. There are going to be these things set against you. So it was like we knew to expect those things, but it's like when you do experience it, it's like, wow, this is interesting, especially coming from the Muslim community. I would say I have not, to my knowledge, experienced what is considered colorism. I'm technically on a lighter spectrum of Black women. So I don't feel like I've ever had to encounter something like that. I do have an older sister who is darker than I am. My father's darker than I am. So I know my older sister has dealt with instances of colorism, but I have not. As far as sexism, I don't know.
In the
I know
industry,
that I've
the
in the industry, in the broadcast industry, absolutely. Now, the beauty was that the men that I did work with were much older and much seasoned in the game. And so they were more interested in teaching me than taking opportunities away from me. I think more so the sexism came like when in the midst of me doing my job, like people not like making a way for me to do my interviews, or like, you know, a coach that is like, okay, well, I just don't want to, you know, talk right now, or whatever, which is like protocol. Like they know that when they're coming off that field or when they're coming off that court, typically there's going to be a reporter on the sideline asking you 2 quick questions, and then you can go about your way. As far as, you know, my writing career, now it is widely known that white men get paid more than any writers. That's in every industry. White men get paid more in corporate America. White men get paid more. I mean, actors, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, this is just, you know, every single business, every single stride. Unfortunately, when it comes to, you know, writing, it's like, you don't know until after the fact. You don't know that this person got paid this much substantially more until, like, you know, way down the line. Like, nobody's saying that right then and there. Until, like, I remember this past year for 2019 going into 2020, people were doing like a recap of how much they made per article and what publication it was in. And this white guy posted how much he made for the year. He posted which publications he made what. And people were like, what? They paid you what? Like, people were pissed. And we were like, wait a minute, hold up. Because this guy made a lot of money writing very minimal articles. And, you know, if you're a freelancer, you usually have to write a lot of articles to make a pretty decent amount of money. And it was just like, women and women of color, we were just like, wait a minute. Like, who is offering you this? You know, because most of the time, you know, if it's an editor, you have to send them a pitch. If you're a freelancer, you don't just automatically get to write something for a publication. Like, you have to send a full pitch saying, this is what I want to write about. This is why it's important. And they get to decide, okay, yes, we're going to go with it or no. And so, you know, a lot of times, you know, we get rejected from the stuff that they get accepted. And, you know, most recently, the New York Times came under heat because they published something that was super problematic, an opinion piece. And the 3 editors that were supposed to have checked it said they didn't really read it. And it was from a white man. And I'm like, that's never happened to me before. I've never had an editor say, oh, no, you need to fix this, fix that. Like, that's always happened. They've always, like, read the piece, edited it down, all of that kind of stuff. So it was just very interesting to see the dynamic. But for me, all of those things, none of those things, I think, really hindered me from continuing to just be who I am and continuing to just show up in my career. With sports broadcasting, like I said, I had so many great older men that have been in the business for like 20 years. I'm only 33. So they've been in the business, you know, practically my whole life. And so they were just looking to show me the ropes as opposed to like try to take anything away from me, and just really see me ascend and see me win. So, you know, when it came to that, and everything that I've done, I've always had that positive to outweigh the negative. I've always had the people that were championing what it is that I was doing, that were saying you did a good job, or this was a great article, or whatever the case may be. And so it balances out when you feel crappy, when, you know, you feel like, okay, race is an issue, or your sex or your gender is an issue. So that's always been the biggest thing for me, is having that balance of the positive and the people that are saying, keep going, keep doing it. You know, you're doing a great job. We value what it is that you do. And that's what continues to, like, pretty much put the gas in the car for me to go.
Absolutely. And that's definitely the true definition of overcoming adversity with resilience. That's what this podcast is all about. So you are living it, girl. So I definitely wanted to tap in on that. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is totally agreeing on everything you say about the sexism and the pay equality gap. It's huge. That's the biggest reason why I started my marketing agency, especially after being in the entertainment industry as a mainly an event photographer, and there's some, unfortunately, it's even with the same ethnicities of if you are a man, even a man of color, you get to a certain that you get like a certain line on the red carpet, so you get to the top of the line because you are either a man or if you're not black, you know, depending on if you're not a woman, like that's the thing that was just killing me about being in the entertainment industry. And you would think that we're all one, right? Because that's the way I grew up seeing us. Like we are all one. It doesn't matter the fact that I am lighter than everybody else. The fact that I do look so white and so yellow does not mean that I see myself higher than you. That does not mean that I'm any less than, you know. So that's something I grew up with. And of course also the struggle of people not knowing what to make of me because of my skin tone, because maybe of the so-called accent people think I have, that in the Muslim community, that was really my first experience of discrimination as well. I really related to, we're supposed to, when you pray together, you're supposed to literally pray together, arm in arm, foot by foot, shoulder to shoulder. But if you are praying next to someone who, let's just say that they don't know they are black too, from the Middle East, right? You're next to them, and there's a gap. I'm like, I'm trying to get my good deed and to keep on moving over, and I'm like, what kind of game are we playing here? So yeah, I've related to that. I've definitely related to that, and definitely related to being. I'm so used to being one of few of either African American, either woman, either Muslim. So yeah, girl, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. So I want to end this conversation. I want to definitely make sure that we can put in the notes in the comments of where we can continue to follow your conversation on the web. First, what can non-Black Muslim, what can non-Black people do to educate themselves in this moment?
There's so many things. I know that, as we've been, as I've been speaking this week, I know that there are a lot of Black people who are tired. And I think one is to acknowledge that Black people are tired. And we're tired because this is an experience that we've had to live, that because others haven't had to live, they've kind of put themselves in a bubble to not have to deal with what it is that's going on. And so, number one, you have to acknowledge that you have privileges, right? You have to acknowledge that somewhere along the way, there is something that is afforded to you that's not afforded to somebody else. And those privileges can be race. Those privileges can be ableism and your physical ability. Those things can be gender. These are all privileges depending on what's more accessible to you than other people. Those things have to be acknowledged, right? And then once you acknowledge those, okay, I have privileges, which means that there's something that I can do that others can't, or that means that I'm in a group of people of haves, and that means there's going to be some have-nots. So let's take a look at the have-nots. Learn about the have-nots. Learn about what the have-nots are going through. Learn about why the have-nots don't have what it is that they need. Why it is that you have Whole Foods and Trader Joe's in your community, but I have liquor store, fried chicken, McDonald's in my neighborhood. Learn about why, systemically people have been oppressed. Learn about the criminal justice system. These aren't things that you're going to be able to learn overnight, but brilliantly, there's so many things that you can watch. There's 13th that talks about the 13th Amendment. You can watch that on Netflix. You can watch To Kill a Mockingbird. It's an old movie. It came out in the 60s, but it's still relevant to a Black man being falsely accused of something very similar to Emmett Till, very similar to the Scottsboro Boys. He was falsely accused of raping a white woman, and he didn't do it. And you can watch that. You can watch When They See Us. This came out in 2019. A brilliant movie. It's on Netflix. There's so many things that you can watch. There's so many things that you can read, especially if you're a Muslim. Allah told the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Iqra. That was the first thing that he told him. Before he could know anything, before he could go out and speak about anything, before he could tell anybody the word of Allah, he had to learn first before he could implement. You have to learn and then implement. So that is my biggest thing for any non-Black person. that is possibly listening, that wants to ally themselves or feel like they want to help in some way, make sure you learn first, and then make sure you put your money where your mouth is. Not everybody is going to be on the front lines. Not everybody's supposed to be on the front lines. Not everybody's supposed to protest. I am an advocate for protesting. I am a protester, but now I have a 3-year-old son. So what can I do instead? Oh, you know what? There's all of these bailout funds. There's all of these black masjids that need and constantly need. Let's begin to send our money and put our money into these organizations that are going to help marginalize specifically black people and underrepresented communities. So those are my 3 things. Acknowledge what your privilege is. Once you've acknowledged that, learn, read a book, read, a movie, whatever the case may be. Talk to friends who are willing to help you learn and give you tools on what it is that you can read and watch, and then implement it. Put your money where your mouth is.
Yes, girl. Yes, girl. Love that. Now, I definitely, if I was not already following you on the web, where can I find you everywhere?
Absolutely. All of my platforms is at She Is Imani B as in boy, at She Is Imani B. That's Twitter, that's Instagram. Even my Facebook page is She Is Imani B. So every single platform that I have is at She Is Imani B.
Perfect. Thank you. And for those who are this is your first ever episode for the Living Legacy podcast, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And please continue to let us know in the comments, in the review, what your favorite part was of the episode, what you love about the episode, and also follow us and continue the conversation on social media at Living Legacy Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you so much, sis. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Living Legacy Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and download so you don't miss the next episode. If you want to learn more, you can visit ZakiraNayar.com. That's ZakiraNayar.com. Do you have any suggestions on a topic you want to be talked about? Send me an email or leave them in a review. If you love this episode, be sure to share it with your friends.